And more than a third of the police officers in the small California town of King City have been arrested. This is all for their involvement in a scheme to steal impounded cars belonging to poor families who happen to be Latino immigrants. In fact, one of the police officers was promised he could keep one vehicle for every 10 to 15 vehicles he steered to a particular towing company. So for more insight on all of this, I want to bring in RT's Ramon Galindo from our LA studio. Ramon, first of all, tell us how this scheme really worked.
Right, Amira. Well, residents of this small town of King City had been complaining that police had been taking their cars for years, but this investigation involving the Monterey County District Attorney's Office and the FBI just started about 6 months ago. Now, in the criminal complaint, it's alleged that a sergeant there in King City between 2010 and 2013 had towed and impounded more than 200 vehicles. And as you mentioned in the introduction, for every 10 to 15 that he would bring to the lot, he would get one in return. Now, the part of the problem is that most of the cars that he was impounding were being sent to just one tow yard. Nearly 90% of all the impounded cars were going to this one tow yard. Problem is that this tow yard also happens to belong to the brother of the acting police chief there in King City. So things did seem a little strange there. Ultimately, the district attorney did step in, ultimately arresting 6 officers and a civilian.
Obviously, a small conflict of interest there with the towing company. But talk about what these police officers are being charged with right now.
Sure. The most serious charges are bribery and embezzlement, all felony charges which carry up to 4 years with each count.
And, you know, this is a very bizarre scheme to try and pull off and really think they could get away with it. The prosecutor in the case has even said that he's considering charging the officers with hate crimes. Do you know anything about that, how this could be considered a hate crime?
Sure. The lead prosecutor in this case said that he was considering hate crime charges against some of these officers. The problem was that a lot of these cars that were taken from Latino families that come from disadvantaged areas there in the city. At the end of the day, proving racial animus in the court of law is very difficult, and ultimately the DA's office decided that it wasn't so much of a racial thing, more of a thing where the police were just targeting the most vulnerable people in this community, many of which had very few financial resources, and many of whom just didn't speak English.
And as I understand it, authorities said that while they were investigating the initial crimes, they stumbled across some other illegal activity. Do you know anything about that?
Right. Well, one of the officers which was arrested this week is being charged with possession of an assault rifle and illegal storage of a weapon. Very tough gun laws here in California. Another officer was charged with making criminal threats against a resident there in King City, and the district attorney this week mentioned that the investigation is ongoing, so we could see more arrests come in the coming days and weeks.
So we'll have to wait and see. But I want to, shift attention to one particular police officer or former police officer that was arrested, former police chief Nick Baldiviez. He's coming under scrutiny. This is not the first time that, he's sort of come under pressure. What's his history?
Yeah, the former chief back in 2010, he was put on leave. He was accused of showing up to a crime scene drunk, actually a murder scene, and stepping in some blood and also putting down his coffee cup there, potentially contaminating the scene. Now, those charges he was ultimately cleared in, but he received a vote of no confidence from the police union, police officers saying that he had retaliated against them. Ultimately, his troubled tenure ended last year when he retired, but he's still getting paid by the city.
And interestingly, King City is not the only California city making headlines this week. San Diego Police Department chief also stepped down amidst allegations of sexual misconduct by police officers in his force. What's the latest on that case? And we only have about 30 seconds left.
Sure. Well, officially, William Lansdowne, his last day is tomorrow. Since 2011, at least 9 officers there have been accused of a range of crimes and misconduct, from rape to sexual battery to DUI. The most serious lately was an officer who is facing several charges of sexual battery. Ultimately, he said that this wasn't the cause for his resignation. However, a new police chief has been named. San Diego Police did not return my phone calls for comment. However, she's been there. It's the first female chief in the city, but however, she's been there for decades. So it's still a lot of questions as to whether someone who's been in the system for so long could really reform a police department that's seen quite a bit of misconduct in the last few years.
Misconduct is becoming more and more frequent, it seems, in the state of California. RT's Ramon Galindo from our LA studio. Thank you.
You bet.